Professors that have been offered sexual favors by students or students that have offered sexual favors to professors. What happened? Not quite the same, but 13 years ago, whilst I was teaching at university, I ogled a girl after finding out she was into Stargate. A month later I was teaching her. A year later, when I wasn't teaching her, we met at a party and ended up hooking up. We've been together for almost 12 years, married 5, and have a son. Whoa, this took a turn. My dad asked my mom out literally the day after he taught her the final class of the semester. They've been married for 28 years. Edit. I guess I should clarify that my mom was 23 or so, and my dad is 10 years older than her. They've always felt like they had a pretty normal, boring relationship to me. Lots of couples meet in strange ways, and I don't think the way they met affected their long-term relationship in any significant way. You know what's kept them together all those years? Super kinky student-teacher play. Imagine it. Guy here had an English lit professor who had a crush on me. She actually gave me a lap dance at a popular bar near the university one night and said, if you didn't have a girlfriend, the things I would do to you, not mentioning she was married. She even wrote in email one time, had we but whirled enough in time. Looking back, I think she had some issues. The real favors she did were writing me letters of recommendation and setting me up with this girl in our class. We were together for 3 years. How did she end up giving you a lap dance? There has to be a juicy story there. The professors from our department would sometimes go out to the bar for a drink with us. One night they stayed longer than usual and she got hammered. She had an obvious crush for a while. I mean, even back then, sending suggestive emails was not a smart idea for a professor, even if they were oddly Victorian romantic. But looking back I realize that woman's body was screaming for babies. She moved away after that to teach at a very conservative university that forbids professor-student fraternizing. And she had a baby. I had an English professor that would make every class write an essay on whether or not it was morally okay for a college professor to date a student. The hot girls that said they were okay with it, he'd ask them out. That seems like it might attract attention from higher up, being a yearly thing. Hide in plain sight. Adjunct in engineering here, male, very few female students. Only once, one of them began trying to negotiate a better grade and put out escalating hints that a BJ was on the table. I just smiled, wished her a good day, and kept my boner under the table. So the BJ went from being on the table to under the table? She negotiated him under the table. It actually happened when I was teaching finance. The young lady asked if there were any non-academic ways to raise her grades and suggested there were few places she was unwilling to go. I used it as a teaching moment. I suggested that she get a study partner, sign up for tutoring, and learn how to do the work. I told her offering up sex for grades would destroy her confidence and self-esteem, but working for and earning her grade would help her for the rest of her life. She earned a B. A professor from my university walked into his office to a completely naked freshman girl standing in there with a six-pack of beer. I don't think she was looking for a better grade or anything, was just attracted to him. He noped right the fuck out of there. Edit. For the love of God, people. I don't know what kind of beer it was. Works 2 out of 3 times. My brother is a professor at a large state school. He was propositioned so many times by students that he and the other 3 professors in their office suite agreed to arrange their office hours so that none of them would ever have to be alone with a student, female or male. Seriously, one of the best pieces of advice I ever received was from my MS advisor. He said that if it was at all avoidable to never ever be anywhere alone with a student, especially in your office, if you had to be for some reason, always leave the door open and sit so that the student could get to the door without going by you. Dude was great for a lot of reasons, but had heard too many horror stories from male and female colleagues about advances and threats from students. Short story from someone I used to know. She was struggling in her astronomy class and went into office hours for the professor. She kept making hints and using body language to signal she was DTF, but apparently the prof just kept slowly moving the picture of his family on his desk further towards her until she left. Happened when I taught in grad school. After I had collected the final exam for the semester, one of the most quiet students in the class started chatting me up as I locked up the room. We walked to the library from there and just made small talk. She seemed nice enough, but as I got to the library and put my stuff down, I told her that I needed some privacy to finish grading exams. She straight up tells me that she thinks I'm attractive and would like to hang out. She's bold because we are on the quiet floor of the library and it's packed, since it's around finals time. Not wanting to be an ass, and a little shocked, I say sure, and give her my number. Long story less long, I tell her we can't hang out until after grades were posted. She aced the class, didn't need any help from me to do it. Before we could even make it to a first date, we ended up hooking up in my car a few weeks after the semester was over. Told me that she was attracted to me from the very beginning of the semester and worked up the courage to ask me out after the final. Kudos to her. School excursion. 12th grade, Germany. Most were around 18 by then. That one girl told us that she's about to get her grade upped by fucking the teacher who was with us and went over to his room. 5 minutes later, that teacher came knocking on our door, the room where most of us were just having a small party, drinking and smoking pot, and we all panicked. After about 10 seconds we had hidden most of the harder stuff and opened the door to see our teacher entering with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. No booze here. I thought you're having a party? After 15 minutes and about a quarter of that bottle, he left us again and told us to have an eye on that girl because she will surely not be happy with the grade he will give her, and that trying to fuck him wouldn't make it any better. It took us a long while to understand that he came over to make sure we all learn about that story and give him an alibi. I was a TAR for an upper level philosophy class. A student came by for my office hours and asked for help on her paper. I was happy to help, and she sat down and said, "It's so hot." She then undid her blouse completely and just sat there with her breasts out. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just read through her draft with her out loud and made some suggestions. When we were done, she buttoned up and left. I'm still not entirely sure if she was trying to seduce me or if she was just kind of strange. Anyway, I reported it to my supervisor and he reported it to the student's specially assigned mentor within the philosophy department. Apparently it wasn't the first time something like that had happened with this student. I seem to recall that she didn't graduate. Not me, but a professor friend of mine. Was older guy in late 40s teaching a business MBA class. Student in her late 30s gives him a card after exam grades were in saying she has liked him all semester and would like to go out with him. That was like 11 years ago. They have been happily married for 9 years now. That's pretty wholesome. Also professional. I see nothing wrong with asking out a professor after the semester is over, assuming you don't need to take any additional classes with them. Back in high school I saw a girl I knew walking around drunk in the middle of a shopping center, so I offered her a ride home. We had a math class together, and she asked me if I thought our teacher was weird. I didn't think he was. She then told me how he lent her lunch money one day and to pay him back she tried to fuck him, but he turned her down. For something as little as lunch money. It shook her that he turned her down. I then had to turn her down in exchange for the ride home. Now she probably thinks I'm weird. That sounds like the girl went through some traumatizing shit. Not to me, but to my father. He was having a meeting with a student in his lab, and his colleague was working across the room. The student was coming on hard to him, and he was doing his absent-minded professor thing, and didn't really notice what she was up to. The colleague was apparently just killing himself at my dad's refusal to acknowledge/notice what was going on. He, the colleague, proceeded to tell that story at most every faculty party, which is how I heard it. I saw this happen to my own dad. I was back in town for Christmas after a few years overseas, and dropped by his lab to walk him to lunch. The second I gave him a hug, I saw one of his postdocs looking absolute daggers at me. The second he introduced me as his daughter, the color rushed back into her face, and she was so happy she nearly hugged me herself. Later I asked him about her, and he just gave me an absent-minded look, and said something about her being back quote a nice girl, worries about me, always making sure I eat lunch. Dad's a long-time widower, so there wasn't any animosity on my part, just hilarity. He's also pretty far along the autism spectrum, so if she really wants him, She'll have to dial it up a bit. I was an adjunct instructor at a small regional college and a female student had tried multiple times to get on my good side for a better grade. First she brought in donuts, then pizza, and finally one day she stayed late after class and suggestively asked if there were other ways she could improve her grades. Being a socially inept male, it took a little bit for that to sink in, but once I got the idea I kindly asked her to leave. She did and I thought that was that. Except it wasn't. Turns out she reported me for sexual harassment. Nothing ever came of it however, since she ended up getting into trouble, drugs I think, and dropped out of school. Even still it was a very scary moment for me, and factored into my decision to leave teaching and pick a different career. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.